Hey guys, it's Steve from Financial Python, and I wanted to put together this quick video to show you how to send emails in Python. So this isn't necessarily finance related, but it is something that I use in some of my Python scripts, including the end result that you're seeing now, my Reddit, Twitter, GBT newsletter. So that's something that gets sent out programmatically from a Python script. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to do that. So the first thing you would need is some sort of email account. I'm going to do that from Gmail. You can do that from different from different email accounts like Yahoo and such. Anything that has an SMTP server, which we'll get into. But let's say if you're doing it from a Gmail account, which my email is. What you're going to do is go to this URL to start. So you see myaccount.google.com and then, the user information / app passwords. I don't actually know if you can get to that just from pointing and clicking. I think you have to, at this point, I think the Google account settings, like they changed it a couple of times. And I feel like I just have to type in that URL. I can't find it any other way. So I'll link that in this video, but yeah, so as you can see, I already have one, but what we're doing here is we're creating a, another password, as you can see, that lets you sign into your Google account from apps on devices that don't support two-step verification. I'll zoom in so you can see that. As you can see, I already have one in place, but for the sake of this demo, I'm going to create another one. So I'm going to select app, and we're going to make it custom. Since it's none of those, I'll just call it FP test. And we'll click generate. Oh, it's asking me for a password. Sorry about that. Hopefully that was it. All right. So we'll try that one more time. FP test. Okay. As you can see, this generated a 16-digit 16-character password for me. So I'm just going to copy that. And let's go into our code, actually. And so I have this open just because I want to get this written down into a file where we're going to actually use it. So as always, we're going to create a new file, Python. We'll do a main.py, which is what I like to use. We'll create a method called main. And I'm just going to print that I'm in the main method. And above here, I'm just going to create a variable, and for now, just call it mail password equals this 16 character password that I was given. So again, I just wanted to get that written down. But so let's go back, and I just want to show you guys one thing on this email again. So as you can see, like this is nicely formatted, even though it's coming from a Python script. There's some paragraphs, there's a table here, there's some information, there's some links. And the reason I'm able to do this is because I'm actually generating this email template with HTML. I'm not just using Python to generate this. So I do want to show you guys how we can use an email template because, I feel like it's so much easier to be able to use a template, for styling. So I'm going to create a new file. I'm going to call it email template.html, right? So we have an HTML file. So I'm going to really just give it the bare bones of HTML. I'm not going to really do much, but I will create a, I need a header, a head, and a body, right? Standard HTML. And what we're able to do with this is add in some dynamic variables, basically. So in this HTML, what we're going to do is we're going to have some dynamic variables that say, kind of like replace, because obviously, we would want to replace with text from the Python script. Obviously, when I'm sending out this newsletter, this stuff is not hard-coded into my email template. This is all dynamic. Some of it is, like this paragraph that's going to be hard-coded, but not all of it is. So, so let me show you how we're able to do that. First thing I'm actually going to do is I'm going to create a div. Again, I really just want to show you guys, that we're able to style this as well. So let me create a div, and I'm just going to call it first string, and I'm just going to put a string in here, and I'm going to say first dynamic string. And then I'm going to do $ brackets, and I'm going to create a variable, dynamic string 1, okay? Just to show, like, again, the $ and brackets indicates this is the variable that we want to replace. And in my header, I'm just going to create some style tags. Again, I'm really just trying to show you that there's different things you can do in terms of styling an email. So, I'm just going to make the background color blue and the text white, not going to, or whoops, the color white, which is the text color. Not doing anything crazy here, right? And then I'm just going to make one more string. Maybe I'll do a line break here, actually, and do another string, and I'm just going to say second dynamic string. And then I'm going to create another variable called dynamic string 2. Again, the idea is just to show you that we're able to replace these, like these $ bracket variables with content from the Python script. So let's go through how we're going to do that. So let me go back to the main method, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to open this file. So I'm going to say with open, we call it email template.html as a file. I'm going to have a new variable I'll call template content, and I'm just going to set that equal to file.read. So now I'm able to read the file content into that variable. And just so, just some housekeeping, I'll just put template loaded. Just so we can see when we're running the script, that stuff is working. Okay. So then how are we going to do this string replacement? So we have this content, we have, we know that there's some dynamic variables in there. So let me show you what we're going to use in order to replace that. So what we're going to use, and I'll link this in the video as well, is this Python string template class. And what this does, as you can see, like from string import template, what this does is allow you to pass in a template content and replace it using this substitute method. So let's see how we're going to do that. Really, all I'm going to copy is this from string import template, and I'm going to go back to my main file. And I'm going to chuck this in at the top. Let's import that, okay? Okay, and then I'm going to create a new variable called template. I'm going to set it equal to an instance of this template class with this template content passed in as a parameter, okay? And then from there, I can define an array of what I'm going to, or a dictionary of what I'm going to replace. So I'm going to replace dynamic string 1 with anything I want. Like, it could be a variable. So, if I had a variable here, that's just first string equals this is a test, right? And then I could set this equal to first string. I have a variable, right? Or I could just hard code something, you get the idea with that, like dynamic string 2. I could set this equal to, this is the second sentence. Obviously, the idea is that would be another variable as well. You know what, let me actually just do that so that's a little more clear. We'll just call it second string. And we'll set the context equal to that. So now I have a dictionary of the replacements that I want to make. Again, when I'm doing this in a production setting, I have, more variables that have a little, or contain obviously production quality data, but this is just an example. So let me show you how we're going to replace that. Again, if I go back, we see there is this substitute method. We see like x and 1, like substitute the value of x in the above template. That's basically what we're going to do here as well. So we're going to say, create a new variable called email body. And we're going to set that equal to template, which is that variable that we created up here, and dot substitute context. And again, what this is saying is take this template, which contains the email template, as a file, and replace the dynamic string 1 and dynamic string 2 with the first string and second string, because that's in this context dictionary. That's what we're substituting, okay? So now that we have that, let's actually send out the email. So to send out the email, I mentioned before that we're going to use SMTP. So that's a simple, it stands for, I think, Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. Basically just allows you to send emails programmatically over the web using an SMTP server. Again, what we're going to use is Gmail, so I'll create a variable for that as well. I'm just going to call it SMTP server. And the value for Gmail is going to be smtp.gmail.com. Again, my understanding is that all other email services have this. So, you know, like we should be fine doing this from Yahoo or whatever you end up using. I'm going to use the standard SMTP port, which is 587. If you go through like the SMTP documentation, it'll say like this is the standard port for sending emails through this protocol. So, you know, basically in every one of your scripts, that port is going to be 587. And then you're going to need a username. So we'll create a variable mail username. And mine is going to be info.financialpython.com. Obviously, yours is going to be whatever your username is. I am going to delete these credentials, so no issues with showing you guys this right now. But, okay. So we have that. Let me show you how we're actually going to create the message, what packages we're going to use. So I have this open as well, so that you see I'm in this Python library, email.mime. So that's basically the library that we're going to use to send the email. I'll link this as well. This is a built-in Python library, nothing that I'm you know, installing that doesn't come with standard Python. And the type of email that we're going to use is this MIME multi-part. And the reason we're going to use that is, again, because we're using an HTML template. We need, and this, you know, this class allows for using basically like different types of email parts. So this, basically this MIME multi-part allows for an HTML email as opposed to just a text email. So to import that, we're going to do from email.mime.multipart import MIME multipart. Okay, and then we can create an email. So I'll call it message. I don't know. Yeah, I'll call it message. Whatever. Message equals MIME multipart, and then we can set the email variable. So we're going to have a from. We're going to have, you know what, I'll just do that for right this second. We're going to have a to. And we're going to have a subject. Okay. And we'll just set this here as well. And, you know, obviously we're going to have a body as well, but we'll get to that. First, we'll just set these variables. So for the subject, I'm just going to set it to testing. To, I'm going to just send it to myself. I do have, you know, in my production with this GPT newsletter, there is, you know, I'm sending it to a bunch of BCC emails because I'm sending it to a bunch of people. Basically, I'm querying for subscribers and sending it to everybody. But I'm not going to go through that right now because, you know, I'm just going to send it to myself. And then for the from, we can actually pass in two things here, and let me explain. So, you know, like when an email is sent to you, you're seeing two things here in the from. We're seeing from and a name, which in this case is Financial Python, and an email address. So we have, you know, we have a from name and a from email address. So we can specify both of those things as well when we're sending an email programmatically. Obviously, I did that. You just saw that. You know, that's who it was sent from. So let me create two new variables. Well, I already have a variable for the username. So you know what? I'm going to create one more variable called mail display name. And I'm going to set it equal to Financial Python. And, you know, if I were to just copy this line, whoops, if it lets me, if I were to copy this line here, this is essentially exactly what we're doing when we're declaring this from. So we have this here. I mean, I could put this in, but, you know, I guess I'll just show the example of making this dynamic. I'm going to, you know, make this an F string. I'm going to pass in the mail display name here. And I'm going to pass in the mail username here. That's how I want it to display, right? So let me do that. Okay, so now we have the from, the to, the subject. The next thing we're missing is the body. And the way we're going to do that actually is by attaching the body. Because it's HTML, we're not going to design it in this file. We're going to have to attach it. So going back to this MIME class, I'm going to just search for MIME text. And this is basically what we do. So this class allows you to basically attach the HTML email to the multi-part email class. So let me show you how we're going to do that. Whoops, didn't mean to click on that. But let's go. Let me show you how to do that. So the first thing we would have to do is import this as well. So we'll say from email.mime.text import MIME text, and then coming down here, I'm just gonna add a quote, attach email body. I'm sorry, add a comment. That's what I meant to say. So we'll say message.attach, and I can pass in an instance of this MIME text class. MIME text, and that's going to take two parameters: the body that we actually want to pass it, and the type that body is. So the type is HTML. So that's how we want to attach this message. We don't want a plain text email. We want an HTML email, which is what we're seeing here. Okay. So now we have our entire message created, right? So this is the email itself. Just put some comments just to kind of get a better understanding. So this is where we start replace the HTML content with dynamic content, right? That's what we're doing down here. And the next thing we want to actually do is send the email, right? Okay, so how are we going to do that? As I mentioned, we're going to be using SMTP to do that, and Python comes equipped with a library to do that as well. So, and that's just called SMTP lib. So I'm just going to import that. It stands for SMTP library, right? So it's just a Python client which allows us to use SMTP to send an email. So with that, how we do that, we're going to write with SMTP lib.smtp. And we need to pass in the server. So I had a variable for this server and the port. Again, that's always going to be 587. I'm going to declare that as server, and then I'm going to do server.startTLS. That's what's actually starting the mail server. And then the next thing I need to do is log in, right? Because you actually need to send an email from a different email address. Like you can't actually you can't just say send. We need to actually authenticate. So that's what this login is actually doing, authenticating for us. And to authenticate, we're going to pass in the username and the password, right? Same thing, obviously. What we would use to log in makes sense, not using two-factor. That's why we have that app password. And then we're going to do server.send email. And we need to also pass in the username as who it's. So you see there's a few things we need to pass in. You can see on my screen, whoops, or I'm sorry, it's send mail, it's not send email. And you see we would pass in the from address, the to address, and the message essentially as what we're going to do here. So let me pass in those. So the first thing is going to be the username. The second thing, again, is going to be, it's actually an array. So again, I had mentioned before that I have, I send an array of messages to a bunch of, I send the message to a list of users essentially. So, you would really be passing in an array in this point. So I'm just going to declare an array in place and just include my to user, because again I'm just sending it to myself, but if I wanted to send it to an array of users, I would do that as well. And what am I actually sending? I'm sending the message as a string. Okay, and let me add some, that's it, but I'm going to add some print statements, just so when we run this we can show that everything is set. So we'll say email body set. We'll say email header set. And here we'll say email content replaced. Again, I'm just adding these in just so when we run this on the terminal, we could see these print statements come out and we could see if there's any issues. And then I'm also just going to do some Python housekeeping that says, when the script is ran to call the main method. So if name is main, call the main method. Okay, so I think we have everything in place, and let's try to send this. So I'm in this folder, the send email folder, where I have these project files. I'm going to do Python 3, main.py. There we go. Okay, so in main method, template loaded, email content replaced, email header set, email body set, and email sent. So no issues at all. And let's go over to our email and see if we get it. Boom, there we go. So I had the security alert, okay, whatever. And we see I just got this testing email. So again, testing was the subject. We see who it came from, which is, obviously myself, sending it to myself. And we see an idea of some HTML styling. So we have, the template loaded in with, I'm just going to go side by side here so we can, look at what we're seeing. All right, so we see, we styled this div to have a background color of blue and a color of white. We had this dynamic string where we replaced this dynamic string 1 variable with this first string variable, which says this is a test. And then we have the second string replacing dynamic string 2, which is saying this is the second sentence. So to recap, what we did here is we're sending an email, we're using an HTML email template, and we're making that template dynamic by adding in these variables. And this way, if you have a script running and you want to send the results of that script to somebody, which is, again, what I do here, this is essentially the results of a script being sent out to a list of subscribers. You could do the same thing. Just replace the content in the email, replace the content in the template with whatever you want to send. So thank you guys for watching. Hope you learned something, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.